Let's talk about change. It's pretty much the one constant in business, right? But actually getting it right? Well, that's one of the hardest and most valuable skills a company can learn. So today, we're going to open up the playbook that helps turn the messiness of change into a real competitive edge.
But before we jump into the how, we've got to face a pretty tough number. A Harvard Business Review analysis found that a whopping 70% of all major change initiatives fail. Just let that sink in for a second. 7 out of every 10 projects don't hit their mark. That's a huge waste of time, money, and morale.
So, what's going on here? Is it always just a bad strategy? Well, the evidence overwhelmingly points in another direction. It's usually not about the plan itself, but about the people who are actually supposed to make it happen.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into that 70% failure problem. Then, we'll look at why training is the secret weapon and what good training really looks like. After that, we'll cover some winning strategies. And finally, see how it all comes together to build a culture that doesn't just put up with change, but actually gets better because of it.
All right, let's dive into that core issue. Because when we talk about these massive project failures, what we're almost always talking about is a human challenge. You can have the most brilliant strategy on paper, but if your people aren't ready, supported, and on board, the whole thing just falls apart.
And this quote right here just hits the nail on the head. You can't just throw a new plan at your team and expect it to work. If you haven't prepared them, supported them, and gotten their genuine buy-in, that beautiful plan is probably going nowhere. It's really that simple and that important.
So if the problem is human, it only makes sense that the solution has to be human too. And this is exactly where effective training comes in. It's the tool that lets you turn the huge risk of any big change into a really powerful reward.
And just look at the difference it makes. It's not small. Projects that have excellent change management are up to 7 times more likely to succeed. I mean, come on, that's not just a minor improvement. That's a total game changer. Good training is what bridges that enormous gap.
And from there, you get this awesome domino effect. Good training obviously minimizes the day-to-day disruption, but even more importantly, it builds buy-in, because people tend to support things they feel a part of. It calms the fear and resistance, and instead it builds new skills and makes your whole team more adaptable. And the bottom line, all of this makes sure you actually get the return on investment you were hoping for.
Okay, so what does effective training actually mean? What does it look like? Let's break down the blueprint for a program that genuinely gets people ready for whatever's coming next.
A really solid framework has 6 key pieces. It all kicks off with a super clear vision and nonstop communication. From there, you've got to train your leaders to be the biggest champions of the change. Then you get employees involved so it feels like something you're doing with them, not to them. Of course, you build up their skills, both the technical stuff and the soft skills, like resilience. You give them the right tools, and finally, and this one's huge, you provide ongoing support. Because change isn't a one-and-done event, it's a process.
You know, a really powerful tactic within that framework is the change champion. Now, this isn't a manager. This is an influential person on the team who gets a little extra training so they can be the go-to person for their coworkers. They offer that crucial peer support and can give you really honest, on-the-ground feedback about how things are really going.
All right, we've got the blueprint. Now let's get into the how. This is the actionable playbook for putting all these great ideas into motion.
This is all about making a few simple shifts from common mistakes to winning moves. So instead of a one-size-fits-all training session, you create customized learning for different roles. Instead of just making announcements from the top, you open up channels for real two-way conversation. And you stop thinking of training as a single event and start building a culture where learning and support are continuous.
And remember, it's not just what you teach, it's how you teach it. People learn so much better by doing. So the best programs mix it up with things like hands-on simulations, role-playing through tricky situations, and even micro-learning. You know, those short, bite-sized lessons that help people learn without feeling totally overwhelmed.
Okay, this all sounds great in theory, right? But does it actually work in the real world? Let's look at the proof. Because when you do this right, you don't just solve one problem, you build a resilient culture that's ready for anything.
Take a look at 2 totally different companies. On one hand, you have the UK's tax agency, a massive, traditional organization. They use digital skills training to push through a huge modernization effort, and it worked, boosting efficiency. Then you've got Adobe, a tech giant. They trained managers on giving continuous feedback to help them shift their whole business to the cloud. The result? Higher employee retention and way more innovation. Different companies, same lesson. Invest in your people.
So really, what this all boils down to is something bigger than just getting through the next project. The ultimate goal here is to weave the ability to adapt and change right into your team's DNA. That way, change starts to feel less like a threat and more like an opportunity.
Because look, another change is always around the corner. It's never a matter of if, it's only a matter of when. So the only question that really matters is this one. When that next change comes knocking, will your team be ready?